Hey YouTube! So this is a little bit meta, but as I was thinking about what to talk about for a tarot video, I was thinking about how I haven't been reading a whole lot, and a lot of my tarot, I wouldn't call it practice because it's not reading, but like my engagement with tarot has been watching YouTube or like deck stuff, like looking at decks, getting excited about decks, but not actually using decks. I've done some reading for others, but I really haven't had a very consistent practice of reading for myself. And one of the things that I've had on my breadth year list is to establish a tarot and astrology practice that is actually going to work for me, that I can implement fully in 2020 and stick with. To give you some context, when I started the year, let me see, actually, do I have, I don't know what I did with it. Well, I did have, anyway, I can't find it right now, but I got the Many Moons Lunar Planner. I wanted to try using a paper planner for astrology. I also did a ton of research around December of last year, like prepping for 2019, and I created a document for my 2019 astrology and looked up all sorts of things, transits, like planets transiting to each other, planets transiting to natal planets, moons, eclipses, returns, retrogrades, basically included everything. So like pretty much the most major aspects for all the planets, which is a lot of stuff. And I'd written down all the dates in a document, and then some of the more important ones I scrawled out in the journal. And this may seem like an astrology video, but we're getting to the tarot part. Anyway, like that was my plan, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then every month I'm gonna make sure I have all the meanings written out. I'm gonna watch a couple of YouTubers, monthly forecast for my sign. I'm gonna check it carefully so that, because I use Placidus rather than the whole house system, to check what houses things are actually happening in my chart, in case it's kind of on the cusp. I was planning to do all that, and I mean, I knew it was going to be a lot, and I knew I might not necessarily keep up with it, but I kind of hoped to keep sort of up with it. And then every month I would have a good sense of like all the things that were happening, and like I wasn't really planning to use it like as elective or predictive astrology, but just kind of like really know what's happening. And how that actually worked out, you can guess. It didn't so much. I did it for a few months and like kind of slowly tapered off, but I realized, like, one, on the day-to-day when I'm busy, I don't have time to think about it. Like, I'm not really paying attention to those little things. Sometimes I would look at my document to be like, what is happening right now? Or like, am I gonna get any energy soon according to astrology? But like, that's some people do swear by it, but I think sometimes the like very day-to-day stuff, the like smaller changes in energy, that really your choices and how you're feeling physically and a bunch of other stuff affect it more. And I see more resonance with astrology in my life when I'm looking at some of the bigger shifts that are happening. Some of the like, where is Jupiter, where is Saturn, where are eclipses happening. I am, as a Cancer moon and rising, like very affected by eclipses. That is something that totally resonates with me, and I notice them. And a lot of times I look at themes and I'm like, oh yeah. Or if I look actually at the themes for the year. So for example, I got Chani Nicholas's year like preview. Is one of the things I did do, and those bigger sweeping themes I've absolutely noticed in 2019, and maybe I'll do a video at the end of the year to talk about that. But those work, but the little things, not so much. And as fun as it was for a while to like do math and figure it out, it's like, it doesn't really resonate. And the reason this is a tarot and astrology video is that my intention was to have both that astrology practice alongside a tarot practice. And so like every week, for example, taking a glance at what the week looked like in astrology, but also plan to do a weekly tarot and oracle pull. And then at the end of the month, plan to look at, like, prep the astrology, but also to do a monthly tarot pull, to look at the what the month cards were for my Femcast. Crystal Power Fem Tarot does an amazing reading I highly recommend called a Femcast. So see what those were for the month, to look at the card for my year ahead spread. So to look at all these different things and then to kind of interpret them together and like think about the themes for the month. And that I've been much more consistent on. I've definitely dropped off the weekly tarot practice, but I have been doing the monthly okay. But that's really been all that I'm doing in tarot. Like, I'm very rarely doing other readings in between the beginning or end of a month. And so that's why, like, this video is about like trying to figure out a practice of tarot and astrology together that is sustainable, that makes me feel connected, but also isn't something that I have to engage with so much that it becomes another checklist to do kind of item. So given that, what I have been preparing for 2020, and I'm looking over here because my computer's down here for reference, but what I've been preparing is a 2020 astrology and tarot doc together. So currently I track things separately. I decided to pull them together to see if I see like connections between the two, to massively scale down what I'm doing in astrology. Not to use the paper planner. I think the mini moons is amazing, and like I wish I had had time to actually read, because I didn't read all the amazing writing in there. I've been really tempted to get the 2020, even though I know I'm not going to write in it, just to be able to read it. But so I'm on the fence. I might still do that. But this doc, I have a table of contents, so it's a little easier to use. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to look at overall year themes. So again, I'm going to get Chinese course. I might look at some other sources to see like what are the big things that are happening this year, or like where does 2020 actually fit into a bigger picture astrologically, because I always find that really interesting, like the multi-year patterns. And then you know, like what are the houses that are going to be getting a lot of attention next year? So for example, this year my 6th and 7th house, we're getting a lot of stuff happening in them. And put year cards, or the year cards like numerologically. So next year it's Emperor for everybody, and then there's a personal one, which is 2020 is 2 + 5, and Hermit for me. Sorry, had to calculate that. So the Hermit and Emperor. But also I'll put in my spread for, I might do a couple of spreads for your head type stuff. I've seen some really interesting options. And then I am going to look ahead and do some looking into specifics, but not as much. So like I'm going to look at where the outer planets are, because those can have a lot of impact. I'm going to look at the eclipses. And then I will do a month by month, but this month by month is going to be simpler. I think I am going to take a look at very close orbs, like transiting my personal planets, but not necessarily like planets transiting in aspect to each other, but like if this is my birth chart, if something aspects my personal planet, I'll make a note of that, because sometimes those can have effect. We'll see how that goes, honestly, but I think that shouldn't be too bad, because it usually doesn't aspect that often to personal planets. And then so I'll look at that in advance. I'll look at the moons in advance, the new and full moons, and like retrogrades. But otherwise, not gonna like do a whole lot in advance. Just gonna write that stuff down, and then for each month, note the monthly card from the year ahead spread, and then also again I'll do a monthly pull and I'll look at the Femcast, but I'm gonna put those in the same place so that I can see everything kind of together. I also thought what I might do is, you know, I track my overall tarot readings in another place, but if I start seeing repeater cards, I'm gonna go ahead and note those, like where they've been coming up during the year, because I think that would be really interesting to put alongside the other stuff. But that feels like manageable to me. Like I know that I could do some of the monthly stuff already. And my hope is that by taking out all those like specific things and not watching necessarily the videos that people do every month, like not caring about all the like this day something's going to be happening, but really looking broader at like focusing on the cycles of the moon, which I know affects me a lot as a Cancer, and focusing on like the bigger kind of sweeping things and a few kind of personal things. My hope is that I am then able to take the time, and I hope I can take the time actually every weekend and just glance at how things are going, or if not every weekend, at least at the end of the month, to like reflect on what's been happening. Because for me, I don't think astrology and tarot are necessarily, like, I don't do it predictively, so I'm not trying to find out what's going to happen. Maybe there's a little bit of that with astrology, of just like wanting to know the energies, but I actually find that wanting to know the energies in advance doesn't really do a lot for me. Like, I don't, planning based on astrology isn't my jam, but having that and then being able to use that as a framework or a lens, like say at the end of a month, to say, how did these things show up for me, and let me journal a little bit on that, and let me think about how those trends are occurring. Or like seeing the big sweeping things. For example, Jupiter is in my 6th house this year, and I've been thinking a lot about health, wellness. I have in fact been like a lot more aware of some of the health stuff this year. So like I can see how that's happening, but it's more of a like alignment as opposed to predicting or trying to plan. I don't know if that was interesting to anyone, but I hope it was. Like and subscribe if you like things like this. Let me know in the comments, like, how do you do your regular practice? And do you find that doing like a regular thing like this is helpful when you're in a slump and you're not just naturally turning to your cards all the time? Because I think that is actually a lot of what this is about for me, is just that a regular structured thing can help me to stay connected to tarot even when I'm not necessarily going to reach for it. So that's that.